Hello creeps! Andy here, and today I have my reading wrap up for July. Yeah? No? Dang, it's already August. That's crazy. Wait, it's August 10th? Oh, I'm doing this a little late. Sorry about that. Okay, so today, yeah, I'm just gonna tell you the books that I've read this month. And then I'll give you a synopsis and the, you know, the usual stuff. We do that all the time. Really quick though, before I get started, where did that book go? Before we get started, I wanted to do a book club for this book this month. I mentioned it in the last video. I have a lot to say about The Eyes Are the Best Part, and I want to have a conversation about it with you. Today on Instagram, I asked how you guys wanted to have a book club, and it's almost split 50-50 between having a live stream on YouTube and then just having me post a normal kind of in-depth video of the book, and then you guys kind of replying in the comments. So please let me know, because those are the highest ones. Fewer people wanted to use Discord or Goodreads or anything like that. So let me know what you would rather do. Would you rather just have me rant for, 15-20 minutes about this book, and then you guys can leave your ideas in the comments? And that's fine. I feel like a live stream might be a little bit better, because then we can interact, in live time and have like a full conversation about it. But I also don't know anything about that, so that might take me a while to figure out. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, please. Anyways, let's start from the beginning. I already talked about this one in my wrap-up, where I ranked the thriller books that I've read this year. So this is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. And this was definitely one of the Riley Sagers I liked less than the other books. I really do enjoy his writing, and I was surprised I didn't enjoy this one as much. This one's about a man who goes back to live in his childhood home, and in the backyard of the home, him and his friend were sleeping one night in a tent, and his friend was abducted. And so it's kind of followed him all these years, a lot of guilt and questions about what actually happened to his friend. And Riley Sager, he always plays with timelines in a lot of his books. So there's multiple timelines in this one as well, current time and then when they were children. But there isn't a whole lot that happens in the book. Like, really, most of the story takes place just in his home or in his backyard. And then he ends up meeting back up with some kids around that time when they were younger, and finding out what their lives are like now, and then going back and revisiting memories of the past and trying to put pieces together and find out what happened to Billy. I think his name was Billy. Morella? Yeah, Billy. So yeah, this one I didn't connect to the lead character as much. All of Riley Sager's previous novels, the main characters have been female, and I do enjoy the way he writes female characters, and I always relate with them on some level. So I'm not sure if it's because this character was a male. I'm not sure if it was because the story wasn't as complex as some of his other stories were. I'm not sure if it's just because it took place in one location. Like, I'm not really sure what it was that I didn't connect so great to the story, but I didn't connect to the story that much. It was still like, I'm so glad I read it because it's a Riley Sager book, and I do enjoy how much thought he puts into things. Like in the back here, he even says that the main character's name is Ethan Marsh. What does he say? Let me find it because I'm gonna mess it up. While the Marsh part also hints that he's stuck in a guilt-induced muck. And so I do think that Riley Sager is a good writer. I do think he puts a lot of work into his writing, and I do think that things are there intentionally. This one just felt a little flat for me. I also predicted the killer, although that was just more of a gut feeling than anything. It wasn't like it was obvious, but yeah, I don't know. I just, from like pretty early on, I said, I know this person's the killer, but I don't know why, but I just do. The next one that I read was Girls Against God by Jenny Hval. Now, I was very excited to read this book. If you remember my last book haul, I was so stoked to read it. And I'm so glad that I did. I much prefer Paradise Rot. I didn't really understand what people meant by saying that there was no plot to this book, but there's not really a plot to this book. It feels almost a little bit like journal entries mixed also with stream of consciousness. There's things that happen in the book, like Jenny, or the main character, I don't know if we have a name for her actually. I don't remember, but about how she joins a band. And so a lot of it is, I think, or seems to be autobiographical in that sense. Like Jenny Hval is in a band, and she talks about like her influences and things like that, and like how she got into metal. And don't get me wrong, there's some really cool lines in here. This one says, "Hope that the shadow will finally get so dense that you could take it with you." And then there's one that I actually posted on Instagram that was like my favorite line in the whole book. I thought it was so fun. But before I get to that, let me just read you this paragraph. Being a witch doesn't need to be more difficult than that. Just look. I don't know how to pronounce this. Venke? Venke? Lifts her hair with one hand, holding 2 twigs in the other. She uses the twigs to cut off a big lock of hair, as if they're transformed into scissors on their way to her head, turning back into twigs afterwards. As Venke cuts, the clipped hairs are immediately transformed into spaghetti. Where the hair was cut, it grows out again. The spaghetti dangles from her fist. I grab a strand, place one end on my lips, and slurp it towards me. So it's very surrealist, and there's really no indication of what's real and what's not real. Like all I remember are little bits of information, because it's like, I'm going to college, I'm meeting my friends, we're at their apartment. But then they also have this, like, they talk about being witches and stuff, but not like in a literal sense really. It's more just like their coven, like their group. And then yeah, weird stuff like that happens. There's also this weird scene where they follow a man or they find a man in the woods, and then he all of a sudden becomes pregnant and gives birth to an egg, and then they have to bring the egg somewhere. It's strange, you know? And so I'm all for strange. I love surrealist literature, but this one, it was like, because there was no format whatsoever and there wasn't one storyline that you could follow, sometimes it was really, really interesting, and then sometimes I'm like, what the hell am I reading, you know? But let me find that other demon spaghetti part, because that was my favorite one. This one says, "I'm better at killing people off than I am at giving them life." I thought that was cool. Like, she's an interesting writer, don't get me wrong. I really did enjoy this. "I'm a lonely black stain on the paper." And then this one, I don't know why I highlighted this, but this just like a random thing put in here. "An episode. A band composed of 6 girls plays in a bowling alley with gloomy lighting. They are dressed in black, and the music they play gradually becomes darker and slower. Suddenly their instruments are made of paper. The girls begin to touch their instruments as if they don't understand what just happened. They pick up scissors from the floor and begin cutting up their instruments instead of playing them. The music continues as if nothing happened. Suddenly the girls are made of paper too. The girls look at the scissors, smile, turn towards each other in pairs, and cut each other's throats in one synchronized snip. Their heads topple off their bodies, and massive amounts of red fiber silk paper streams from their empty necks." The end. So I'm sure that if I had time to like sit back and analyze this whole story, I don't know, maybe I would find more to it than this. But this one was one that was like, I talked about this before, where when a book is so weird that people can't really connect with it because you can't make sense of it. That's kind of how this one was. Although I did still enjoy it. I was reading malleable and said enjoy at the same time. Anyways, this one says, "Now I'm so malleable, I chew myself like gum." Oh, there's some great lines in here, I'm not gonna lie. Let me try to find that spaghetti line. I'm gonna have to go through my freaking pictures, so give me a quick hot sec here. "I still heat from people's creed to warm my cold demon soul." That's such a great line. Okay, this is the paragraph that I think was my favorite. It says, "The girl slurps up more and more spaghetti. It turns out that the body and head of the demon are made entirely of spaghetti, and it slowly begins to unravel. In the end, the cloak is the only thing left on the chair. The girl devours the last strand of pasta and happily continues to eat what's left on her plate, as if the demonic spaghetti isn't real food, but satisfies some other need." So there's some really cool stuff in here, but like as a cohesive story, I could not make heads or tails of it, if that's an expression. Okay, the next one that I read was Beast of Burden by Judith Sonnet. This is about a group of band members that go into the forest to have like a photo shoot, and they're kind of down on their luck because one of the members of their band has just quit. So they're a little upset about it, and they find more in the woods than they're bargaining for. I'm going to talk more about this one because I have an extreme horror reading vlog coming out, and that's in that video, sorry. The next one that I read is Ex-Boogeyman by Christopher Triana. This one was really fun. This felt like reading a campy slasher movie, like 80s campy slasher movie, but in book form. Like, I've just never read anything like it before. And I don't know that I would label it extreme horror, but it's brutal. So it's like, you know, ripping out people's esophagus and beating them over the head with it. You know, typical stuff. Yeah, so this one's pretty brutal, but it's basically just about this man who makes these movies, or made these movies. He became the famous villain in these movies. And now it's however many years later, 20 or 30 years later, they're remaking the films, but they're not using him in it. His name was Nicky Hector. That was the unstoppable slasher from the lunatic horror movie franchise. So the actor that plays him is named Jonathan. So when Jonathan finds that they're creating this movie without him, he's like, no, I don't, you know, like that's like his identity. Actually, let me read the back and make sure that I don't give too much away. Oh yeah, okay, so it says Jonathan Zane begins a descent into madness. He slips into his old costume, sharpens his meat cleaver, and brings the Nicky Hector character back from the dead for one last bloodbath. So he has Nicky Hector as an alter ego that kind of consumes him. And then he goes to the filming location of where they're scouting this new movie and just wreaks havoc. So it's a fun slasher summer camp type of movie. It was honestly really fun. I'm sure I'll talk about this in a different video I have an idea for. But yeah, so this one's like, it's not crazy extreme horror, but it's pretty gory, you know? But it's also fun. It's just like a fun book, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Not that the characters aren't well developed or anything like that, because you do have two sisters that are staying at the summer camp, and then you have, like, you know, other people that are just fans of the Nicky Hector franchise that come to that location for that reason. It's like a whitewater rafting camp type place, but it's just a fun summer read, you know? So anyways, recommend that one if you want something pretty gory. This is Harrison Phillips' Shotgun Nun. I finally read this guy. And I'm not going to go too into detail because this is another one in the extreme horror reading vlog, but it's about a nun and she's got a shotgun. What other information do you need to know? But it's, yeah, kind of just like her revenge story after something tragic happens in her life. But again, we'll go into more detail about that. Next, I read Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. This was our book club, mine and my friends, for this month. It's a lot like the movie Jurassic Park, and they also pull little bits and pieces from this book for other movies as well, but it's a lot like the movie and then nothing like the movie at the same time. I was really surprised by this read. I mean, it still has the same general plot of a man opening up this Jurassic Park where you can go and see dinosaurs, but I feel like the characters are a bit different, and definitely like deaths and who survives and stuff is different. I was really surprised at how different the characters were, but I think I'm gonna do a whole movie versus book on this one. I will say that I'm very loyal to the movie. It played a special part in my childhood, the movie did. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I read it, and still highly recommend you read it if you like the Jurassic Park movies, because it's just kind of a different, yeah, a whole different look into that world. And yeah, pretty interesting. Also, did you know the guy who wrote Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton, he was like 7 feet tall when he was alive. He was 7 feet tall. Anyways, next I read Wedding Cake Carnage. I think this is number 11 or 12 in the series. I don't know, I've lost count by now. This one was so funny though. Okay, this is my cozy mysteries I talk about every month, blah, blah, blah. Probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but it's about a woman named Lottie Lemon, and she runs a bakery in this small, cute town, and there's these two hunky guys, and they're in a love triangle. She also has these powers where she can see the ghosts, she can see the ghost of pets of people who are about to die. So she'll see, for example, a rabbit. That's never happened, but you know, just pretend. She'll see a rabbit and be like, uh-oh. And then whoever that rabbit belonged to, like whoever owned that rabbit, will die. But she doesn't know who had that rabbit until after the body is found. And then the animal kind of helps her with her investigation, trying to solve the crime of who murdered that person and why they did it, and, like, you know, seek justice. So the reason this one's so funny though is because there's a new character that was introduced. It's this little dead girl, and she's like a axe yielding psychopath, and she's hilarious. These books are so funny, but I hope that little dead ghost girl stays in the books. And then this one was a little bit more than just the typical story that we have. So we just have a murder and she tries to solve the murder in every book up until this point. And this one we had an additional element, which I won't tell you about because it'll ruin what happens before and whatever. But you have a different element. The only thing I'll say is because there were two different stories, one of the timelines just like ended super abruptly and you're like, oh, okay. I was kind of hoping they would carry that out for a little bit, like a few more books to kind of emphasize that story, but it all got wrapped up and I get it. Like, they're cute little cozy mysteries. You should be able to just pick one up and read it and kind of know what's going on. So I get it, I guess. But I would, if you're going to read these, I would start with number 1 if you want to read them all like me. But anyways, really cute, really fun. The next one that I read was Everyone is Watching by Heather Gudenkauf. And this one was really fun. So it's basically about these group of contestants that are chosen for this reality Big Brother type show. I think that's what it says. Big Brother meets Clue. I don't really know what happens in Big Brother though. So I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm sure that that's appropriate, but basically these people are chosen to be on this game show called One Lucky Winner, and they're up to win $10 million. So they're like all out, will do anything for this money. And so you have like a senator, you have a single mom, you have a therapist, you have like, people from different walks of life that are determined to win this money. But when they start playing the game, they start kind of figuring out that it's not exactly what they bargained for. It's more dangerous. Things are going wrong. People from their past are popping up. The questions they're being asked are kind of weird. And they start to think that the producers of the show know a little bit more than they're letting on to know. And yeah, this one I actually really did like. I was really invested throughout the whole story because you get the games they play and what's happening. And it felt really original to me. The only thing I'll say is that a lot of the times with thrillers, I feel like you're in anticipation so much that you reach the climax, and then from the climax to the end, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. That's kind of how this one was, especially because I don't think that whoever was behind this could have been that many people. So I feel like it was kind of obvious who was in on it at least. And then the ending was like a little bit too wrapped up in a perfect little cute little bow, like here you go, perfect, done. The ending was whatever, I'll say, but I enjoyed the story so much that while I was reading it, I'm like, I don't even care what this ends up being, like I don't know that the ending can ruin, because I enjoyed so much of the ride getting to that point. So yeah, I did enjoy this one, and if you guys like those kind of game show type stuff, you might actually really like this one. This is my second Heather Gudenkauf book. I think I liked the first one more, and I don't even remember what it was called. The Overnight Guest was the other one of her books that I liked even more than this one. But this one I thought was super original for a thriller. The next book that I read was The Death of Ivan Ilych? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but one of you told me that you pronounce his name Leo Tolstoy, and it's spelled L-E-V. So what? I believe you, and I've heard that name. I don't think I've read any of his work in like getting my English degree or anything, but I've definitely heard that name, but it's just weird that that is how it's pronounced. Anyways, so this is about a man. Well, we learn that he's died in the first chapter or two, and we see how his family and friends are reacting to his death. And then we go back in time from his perspective through until his death. So it's not a surprise that he dies. I mean, no, it's called The Death of Him. So yeah, obviously he dies. This one's really neat. This book was really cool. I really, really enjoyed this one. So you go through his life, and at first he's really hesitant to admit that he is dying. But then he's forced to look death in the face and be like, no, this is actually happening. I'm gonna die. So while he's coming to terms with the fact that he's dying, he's kind of looking back on his life. And from an outside perspective, he has everything that you should have in a life, right? Should have. He has a wife, he has a family, children, he has a house, he has a pretty prestigious job, he's like a judge or something, wealthy friends, game nights, like poker nights and stuff. Sorry, I just pictured like a bunch of men in the 1800s playing board games. When was this published? 1886. Fuck, that's old. I just pictured a bunch of old men from the 1800s playing like a modern day board game, like the zombie games that I play with my friends. It was a funny image. Anyways, from an outsider's perspective, he has what he should have. But he really starts to contemplate and look back on his life in retrospect and realize that he's done it all wrong. Him and his wife don't get along. And the first I was reading it, like, man, his wife is a pain in the ass. But we only see his perspective, and his hatred and fear of death and all the negative emotions he feels, he kind of personifies as his wife. It's really weird. Like, she is a product of his rage. So then you look at it from that perspective and you're like, okay, well, I guess we can't really take just his perspective on it. We certainly don't get her perspective. So yeah, we see her bitching at him, but we don't know why she's bitching at him or what he's doing. So although it seems sad because he is very lonely around his death, he's also very filled with rage and kind of pushes everyone away at the same time. So anyways, yeah, a really interesting story. Kind of one of those books where you're like, I'm glad that I've read that right now. It made me really think about the difference between living and existing, and when you do reach the end of your life, how will you look back on it? And will you see yourself from the perspective of other people and like, oh yeah, you know, they had what they were supposed to have, they did what they were supposed to do, they had a job, whatever? Or are you going to look back on it and be like, oh, I did everything that made me happy? Like, you don't really get to see much in him that shows him being proud of himself. I don't know, it's a really interesting read. And then at the end, I don't want to give too much away, but he ends up facing death, and then more things happen. My neighbor just turned on their light across the street, so they're definitely going to be able to look straight into my window and be like, she's speaking to herself. You know what? I'm going to shut my blinds, even though it's going to be a little darker in here. The very last book that I read last month was this guy, Sour Candy. Hold on, let me turn up the brightness so you could see the screen on this guy. How do I do that? I don't know how to turn up the, oh, wait, no, I do, right? No? Yeah, no. Okay, I will just, if you can't see it, I'll just pop up a picture. So this is Sour Candy by, I'm gonna pronounce this incorrectly. I don't know if it's Keelan Patrick Burke. I don't know, you guys let me know. Let me go to the beginning because there is a cool, like the first line of this. How did I pull up the web? I didn't even know you could do that. What is happening? Where am I? Hello? This book starts with this line. For months to the day he first encountered the boy at Walmart, the last of Phil Pendleton's teeth fell out. What a cool first line. So this is a cute little, I always use the word cute. It's not cute. It's about death. Like, come on, what is wrong with you? But anyways, it's a little short novella, and it's about this man who comes across this older woman and this child throwing a tantrum in a store. And he's on the phone with his girlfriend and he's like, what is going on here? This is very weird. I guess I don't want to give too much away because I don't know what the synopsis is, but what ends up happening is he wakes up in this alternate dimension where he has a different relationship to the kid. Yeah, I don't really know exactly how to describe this one, but I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. It was just so original and different and fun. Like, it was just a fun, cute little story about death. But this kid is like, definitely something's wrong with him. He really does become like a cog in the plan of this little child, but it's not really a kid, you know? It reminded me of a lot of a movie, but I think I'm gonna save that for a different video, and I'll talk about that one a little bit more. But it was honestly just a fun little novella. Highly recommend. I would definitely read more work from him, so let me know if you guys have read other stories from him, and I will pick them up because that one was really fun. Anyways, these are the books that I read this month, ladies and gents. Let me know what you read, let me know what your favorites are, and let me know if you guys have read any of these and what you thought about these particular books. Thank you so much for watching, for commenting, for DMing me on Instagram and talking to me about books. Like, you guys are just, I don't know, you're just cool. And I like hanging out with you. So thanks a lot. And I will see you soon with another horror video. Bye guys! And I need to drink water because I'm a thirsty little bitch. Dun, 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 dun.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.